Greetings, humans! Welcome back to Sci-Fi Punks, where we like to talk all things sci-fi, movies, comics, video games, novels. If it's sci-fi, I want to blab about it. I'm going to do that here today with a review of Alien Romulus. This film was just released in the year of our Lord 2020-24, directed by Freddy Alvarez, produced by Ridley Scott. I am a gigantic fan of the Alien franchise. I love all four of the original Alien films, including Alien Resurrection. I'm one of the 600 people on the planet that actually like that movie. And the number one thing I've wanted to see from Hollywood ever since I was a kid is more Alien films. I actually believe that unlike the Terminator or even Star Wars, there is a lot of room for the Alien franchise to grow. There is a lot of unexplored territory. I just find that the series shows a lot of potential for a lot of expansion, a lot of interesting stories, because even though we have a ton of movies about the Alien franchise, we still don't know that much about the alien itself and the world that the humans are living in, the nature of the company Weyland-Yutani and the state of the galaxy or their civilization. So I like to see more Alien movies get made, even though I haven't really liked one since Alien Resurrection. The Alien vs. Predator movies are fun. I actually quite enjoy watching both of them. They're good for what they are, but they aren't canon in my opinion. They don't count because they're just too stupid to actually belong in the canon of the official Alien lore. And then you get to the Prometheus movies directed by Ridley Scott, the film Prometheus and its sequel Alien Covenant. And this was an attempt to kind of come back to this franchise in a different way. And Ridley Scott, he wanted to use these films as an avenue to kind of explore bigger ideas and make it more than just a monster film. But I would argue that the original Alien series, especially the first film, is a lot more than a monster film. There is a lot of subtext, a lot of really interesting ideas that are being explored under the surface. The film isn't overt about it. It's very subtle with its messaging and what it's trying to say. And the scope of its themes isn't super grand. It's stuff like sexuality and rape and, you know, just the nature of isolation and horror and various themes like that. Whereas Ridley Scott's later films, he wanted to get really big. He wanted to expand the scope to basically what is the meaning of life. He wanted to broaden the scope of the Alien franchise to try to, almost on a 2001 A Space Odyssey level, like just kind of get really, really existential about everything. And I don't think that was a smart move for the franchise. I really don't think the Alien franchise lends itself to those sort of questions. I like to say that I think that Prometheus, especially, and Alien Covenant, they're both films that think that they are smarter than they actually are. I'm not a huge fan of those films. They're interesting to watch, but in my opinion, they also don't really belong officially in the Alien lore in my head. I have a problem with retconning because they're both prequels to the original series as well, and I'm anti-prequel. I'm not a huge fan of prequels because I don't believe retconning can ever truly work. So right off the bat, I'm going to say that when it comes to Alien Romulus, I was a little disappointed. Unfortunately, I really didn't want to be. I really had high hopes for this film, but I came away from it fairly disappointed in a lot of ways. First of all, because it is a prequel, it does do a bunch of retconning and stuff like that I think is a little unnecessary. If I had my druthers, we would just go further into the future and continue the story on from Alien Resurrection, do an Alien 5, and just kind of keep the story going, because I do think that Alien Resurrection has a lot of interesting themes and a lot of interesting messaging that is well within the scope of the Alien franchise, and it would have been cool to kind of keep that story going and keep exploring those themes or expanding upon them. But no, instead, we're just going to go back in time again and do a prequel. It's not really a full prequel, though, because it takes place in between the first film and the second film. And this is actually a pretty good choice because there is a 57-year time jump between the two films, lore-wise, in the story. There is 57 years between the first two films. So it does kind of make sense to kind of explore what went on during that time, because a great unanswered question about the original Alien franchise, especially in the second film, is there is a 57-year period where Ripley is asleep. She's asleep in a cryotube. And for some reason, the company that sent her out after the alien never went to investigate LV-426 or try to kind of follow up on her mission. This company wanted the alien really bad, to the point where it was willing to sacrifice human lives. But after Ripley destroys the Nostromo and goes to sleep, I guess the company just kind of forgot about it for 57 years. So I think that this new film, Alien Romulus, it attempts to kind of fill in those gaps and kind of explore, yes, the company was active during this time. But what did I think of the film itself? Like I said, I was fairly disappointed. But first, I want to talk about the things I liked. The alien itself, the xenomorph, has never looked better. Up to this point, my favorite portrayal of the xenomorph design-wise on screen was in Alien Resurrection. I thought those aliens looked great. They have been usurped by the design of the aliens in this new film, in Alien Romulus. They just look amazing. I love their like silver grill jaw. They just have this really awesome mouth. They just look really cool, and much of the effects were done practically. The movie really sold itself on that many of the effects on screen are practical effects. And and it looks great for that. I really do appreciate that aspect of it. So the aliens look great. The facehuggers look great. The movie's not boring at all. It's got a great pace. It's got some great horror, some good gore, it's got a pretty good story. It's a story that's good enough anyways. The characters' initial motivations, I like that they live on this colony in outer space, and it's a shitty place to live, and they're trying to get their big break to get away from this colony, and that leads them to this space station with the aliens on board. So it's a decent setup, but here's where I'm going to start criticizing the film. The characters themselves, to me, are not interesting. The main character and the android character are both pretty good. I liked them the most, but beyond that, I don't care about anybody else in this film. Not at all, honestly. Very forgettable. When I first saw the trailer for this film, I was instantly afraid that it was just going to be a back-to-basics alien film where it's just some people stuck on a spaceship and they're running away from the aliens, and that's the whole movie. And that was true. That fear was justified. That is all the film is. It's just, a horror movie in space. It doesn't have anything bigger to do. The setting doesn't get any, the setting is just a bunch of corridors. So it's harkening back to the original film, but in too many ways. This is the same problem that a lot of people say they have with The Force Awakens. It's just too similar to what we got before. I mean, some people will like the back to basics approach, especially the ones that don't like a lot of the Alien movies besides the first two. But me, I wanted to see something different. I was hoping to get something a little different, and I did not get that here. Most of my problems with the film actually stem from how Hollywood it is. This movie feels very much like it was made in 2024. It's just got so many tropes. The android character, he's kind of damaged and defective, but then he finds a computer chip that makes him makes him super android and makes him super awesome and super intelligent. And then the film kind of has this messaging about how he takes the chip out eventually and goes back to his old self, and it's all like, you're awesome the way you are, sort of Hollywood messaging, kind of cheap tropes like that kind of stood out to me. The intro during the beginning of the movie, the main character, she wants to get off of her colony, and she goes to this clerk who's supposed to give her a passport so she can leave the colony, and then the clerk is like, actually, the schedule's been changed and you need to stay here for another 5 years. And the girl's like, oh, my family died here. The clerk at the kiosk is just so unempathetic towards her that it feels like the movie's trying to spell out for you that this is fascism, the future is fascist. It's just a little too on the nose. That kind of stuff just really stood out to me as just very Hollywood, very trying to spell things out for the audience, what the situation is. They don't have any faith that people can kind of figure things out themselves. They need to tell you every single detail about the situation that these characters are in, because they don't expect you to just kind of look at the imagery and be able to put things together yourself. And that kind of thing I find very annoying. The final act of the film tries to do something interesting with the alien life cycle and kind of introduce some new concepts, but it's not executed very well, and it is just a callback to what we got in Alien Resurrection. Basically, we have a half-human, half-alien hybrid monstrosity that the hero has to fight at the end of the film, and we've seen this before in Alien Resurrection. I feel like Alien Resurrection actually executed this a lot better. It's just kind of more Lovecraftian in its scope, where Ripley, the character Ripley in the film Alien Resurrection, was cloned with an alien inside of her so that her DNA was mixed with the alien inside of her, and then the alien inside of her eventually gives birth with a human reproductive system, and it creates this new monstrosity. And that's just a really interesting, creepy concept. Whereas what we get here in Alien Romulus is there's like this magical goop. It's the goop from Prometheus. And some girl injects it to herself while she's pregnant, and her baby turns into a monster. It's just not quite as interesting to me. It doesn't have a lot to say. It doesn't have a lot of implications about it. Just that evil goop makes bad monster. That's all the movie kind of does with this. So at the end, you get this weird-looking monstrosity that kind of looks like the Prometheus guys, like the engineers, kind of like a weird riff on that idea. And it gets sucked out into space. I just wasn't satisfied with that concept. There's one particular criticism that I think a lot of people are going to have. The character Ash in the first Alien film was played by Ian Holmes. He was the android. And they bring him back into this movie using a deep fake. He plays a different android this time. And they CGI his face because the actor died. And, well, the actor was also really old and then he died. So he could not have done this role. So they bring him back using special effects. And it just looks really fake. Like, really, really fake. Every single time he was on screen, I was taken right out of the movie. And the problem is, this is not a cameo. This character is on screen a lot for much of the film. Like, it's not just like one scene where you get this kind of crappy looking CGI face guy. It's like throughout the film, he keeps showing up. They did not need to do this. They could have either used a prosthetic or just had a different android that doesn't look like Ash. It doesn't really make sense why it needs to be the same actor at all. It could have just been a different robot. There is something I want to say about this, though. A lot of people have been debating the ethics of doing this, bringing back dead actors into modern films using CGI and deepfakes. The question I have for you, that for the people that have a problem with this, who think it's kind of unethical to do this, what would you say if they managed to hire a lookalike and then use some makeup and prosthetics to make him look pretty much indistinguishable from the original actor? Would you have a problem then? Is the deepfake worse for some reason than just a lot of really good makeup? I just think that's an interesting question. But anyways, I thought it looked really fake, and I wasn't a huge fan of that either. The movie uses a lot of great sets and great practical effects, and I give it credit for that. But where there is CGI, I find it does stand out quite a bit. But yeah, I don't really care too much about that. It's mostly just that I had a problem with the tone of the film, how Hollywood it felt. But it didn't do anything too offensive. Like, it doesn't mess with the lore too much. I am happy to see that this film is doing very well at the box office. It looks like it probably will get a sequel, and people seem to like it, and I'm really stoked for that because I do want a sequel to this movie. I don't think my problems with it don't make me hate it. I definitely would watch this film again. I definitely would like to see a sequel to it. It's not like the movie Alien Covenant, where I really didn't like some of the choices that it made to the point where I'm like, I actually don't want to see a sequel to this. That's not the case here. I do think Alien Romulus deserves a sequel, and I would love to see one. So I'm happy that people are enjoying this film. I just thought it was a little disappointing. Anyways, that's my review. All hail Megatron.